my name is Emily Westbrook, and I am going to be presenting my speech about John F. Kennedy. Who do you think about when someone asks, who is the most influential president that the United States has ever had? For a lot of Americans, the answer is John Fitzgerald Kennedy. For my speech, I have chosen to inform the audience about John's early life, his presidency, and his death. Kennedy's legacy has lived on in the life of Americans and in the history books. The first point I would like to discuss is the early life of John F. Kennedy. John was born in 1917 to Rose and Joseph Kennedy. His childhood nickname quickly became known as Jack. Throughout his life, it is said that John has never had very good health. His mother actually kept note cards of all of the children about their lives and their illnesses that they have contracted during childhood. His ailments included whooping cough and the deadly scarlet fever. Though it was not sure if he would ever recover, he pushed through. John and his large family grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. When he got older, he attended a boarding school by the name of Choate, located in Connecticut. The headmaster of Choate describes Jack as a student who would only be focused when it came to his favorite subjects, which were English and history. After he graduated from Choate, he attended Harvard in 1936. His focus was on history and government, more specifically politics and world affairs. During Jack's senior year at Harvard, he published a thesis about how Great Britain was unprepared to go to war with Germany. This thesis later became published and named Why England Slept. Soon after he graduated from Harvard, John and his brother, Joe Kennedy, joined the Navy. His brother Joe actually met his demise by a plane explosion during a mission to Europe. After the war, John was convinced to run for Congress in Massachusetts, in which he won. This was around 1946, and it marked the beginning of John's career in politics. The next fact I would like to discuss is John's presidential career. His next stop on the road to presidency was he became senator in 1952. He went on to marry Jacqueline Bouvier, and they both had their first child together, of which they named Caroline. After winning the vice president spot in 1956, he later chose to run for president in the following election. In 1960, he began his campaign for presidency as a Democrat. He chose Lyndon B. Johnson as his vice president. And on November 8th of 1960, he won the election against Richard Nixon and became the 35th president of the United States. Just before his inauguration, he actually had his second child with Jacqueline, and they named him John Jr. During his speech, he gave a quote which later became very well known throughout history. Ask not what you can do for your country, what your country can do for you, Ask what you can do for your country. During his time in office, he battled the Soviet Union in the Cold War. This included the Cuban Missile Crisis with Cuba. John's fear that millions would perish if the United States went to war. So he worked day and night tirelessly trying to come up with a solution. One solution was creating the Peace Corps, which meant people could volunteer to work around the country where they were needed. Other accomplishments in office included putting the first man on the moon by the end of the decade, and helping Americans work together on finding a way to end racial tension and discrimination. This meant he worked a lot with Martin Luther King Jr. The last point I would like to discuss is John's early death. On November 21st of 1963, President Kennedy went to Texas to deliver a few political speeches to the city of Dallas. Him and his wife, Jacqueline, rode in a vehicle with an open top so he could connect more personally with his crowd. He was then shot in the head by an assailant, which later led to his death. The police then arrested suspect Lee Harvey Oswald and charged him with the murder of President Kennedy. Oswald was later assassinated by a Jack Ruby, which ended any chance of the people getting answers as to why he assassinated Kennedy. To this day, there are many questions that have remained unanswered. In conclusion, President Kennedy's death shocked and hurt the lives of many Americans. His legacy has and will be talked about in the history books until the end of time. Although his time in office was short, Kennedy put tremendous effort in improving the lives of American people and protecting the country. To this day, many remember his life as if he was still alive today, and will continue to remember what he has done for America during his political career. And that is my end of the speech. Thank you for watching.